Well, folks, it's Bruce here from the Coasters Club, and today I'm with a man who is famous in the watchmaking world and in a number of other worlds. Howard Hughes. Howard, thanks so much for agreeing to share some of your life story with Coasters.
You're welcome, Bruce.
And look, as you may or may not know, that we have 25,000 members, 25,500 now. And they're right around the world. They're in London, they're in Australia, they're all over the place. So, what's your full name?
Howard Morris Hughes. Morris after my grandfather.
Fantastic.
Murray Swift.
How old are you? When were you born?
The 8th of the 6th, 1939.
1939.
81.
Beginning of the war.
Yes, yeah.
That's a sign.
Yeah. And the first thing I can remember at Paroa School where I went to was I was the youngest one there, and the youngest and the oldest in the school rung the bell when the war had finished. So I must have been there earlier.
Oh, wow.
In June.
Wow. Where were you born?
At Greymouth, Grey Hospital.
And can you remember, what was the name of the ward back then?
McBrearty.
Oh, so the same as,
Yes.
Obviously it's being demolished now.
Yes.
Or in the process of being. When you were born, your mum would have taken you home. Where was home?
At Paroa. Oh, no, it was in Greymouth.
Right.
For then. And we shipped it out to Paroa when I was 1, I think. Yeah.
So did you ever have a look at the house that you were taken home to? Is it still there?
Yes, still there. Yep.
Wow. From 1939.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Who were your mum and dad?
Mum was Dorothy Edna Swift.
Right.
And they've been here since, I wouldn't like to say how long the Swifts have been here. What did you reckon? When were they here?
About 1870.
1870s. That's Mum's family.
So they were on the first boat.
They were butchers and stock drivers.
Right.
And the rest, yes.
And what did your dad do?
Dad, Les Hughes, was a plumber, and he served part of his time with King Dick's son.
Richard John Seddon's son.
Yes,
In Greymouth?
in Greymouth. And 2 of my brothers became plumbers, and I wanted to be a plumber, but there wasn't a position available when I was ready to leave school. And this other job came up as a watchmaker at Sutherland's, and I joined up as an apprenticeship.
Well, look, I can tell you, many of us are very glad you did that.
Yeah.
Because when you were a kid growing up, what did you do for fun?
Anything that happened. We were at Paroa, we had 2 lagoons down the back, or galloons as we called them,
Right.
and they're old dredge holes. We were down there swimming, boating, up the bush, in the shed, making toys, making things, and so on.
And as long as you're home before dark, things were good?
Oh, yes. No, as soon as the train went through, that was going through to every night from Greymouth to Ross, and we had to leave as soon as the whistle went at Paroa Station.
Right, so you're out playing, you heard the whistle blow,
We heard yep,
and you had to go home.
we had to go home, yep.
Oh, I love it. I love it. The rules were so simple, weren't they?
Oh, yes.
Did you, when you were growing up, did you have a nickname? Did they put a nickname on you early on?
No, not really. Till we got down here and Ron Bretherton put a TikTok on my name, so I've been TikTok ever since.
That'd be wrong. That'd be wrong. Now, whereabouts where'd you go to primary school?
At Paroa.
And was it a big school back in those days?
There'd be 70 or 80 children there, yeah.
Oh, so a good sized school.
Yeah.
Did do you have a teacher in primary school that you can remember? One that was any good?
Yes, Fanny Everton from Kamara.
Right.
She was. And she married a barber from down here. I took over the shop later on.
For the jeweller shop.
Evenden.
Right.
Yeah, she was Fanny Evenden. She married in later life. Yep.
were you a book reader? Did you?
No,
Didn't like books?
no, never.
What? Whereabouts did you? Where did you attend high school?
At Grey Technical High School.
I
It
bet.
was called Technical High School then, yeah.
And that was a reasonable size, if I.
Oh yes,
You know.
yeah, yep.
Was what was your favourite subject at high school?
Mechanics and woodwork.
engineering.
Yeah, well,
Mhm.
actually that kind of ties in with where you went in life as well, doesn't it?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it really ties in. Was there a favourite teacher at high school? One who
Eddie Cock, the engineering teacher,
yeah,
was good. So yeah, he was the best one.
because the teachers in life are really important, aren't they?
Oh, yes.
One way or another.
Yep.
Did you? Now I know the answer to this, but you enjoyed sports.
Oh yes. Yeah.
What sort of sports?
Well, the main one that we had was swimming.
Yeah.
My brother Graham, he was 3 years older when you won the Chautauqua medal, which was the primary school for all the coasters.
Right.
Went to high school and won every swimming medal in the juniors, intermediate and seniors. And a few years later, little Howie come along, and I didn't win the Chautauqua medal, but I beat all Graham's school records.
Oh, excellent.
We both had most of the freestyle, as we used to call it overarm then, freestyle,
Yeah.
records for the West Coast. So yes.
And did you ever get to go away swimming?
Yes, I've been to the National Swimming Champs in
Oh wow.
Napier and National Swimming Champs in Nelson.
Oh, so you were up there.
And I got to the, I was getting a bit older for swimming then, which was 18, you was a bit older for swimming. They had the national champs in Greymouth,
Yeah.
and the only event I went in there was the 3 Mile Lake Canary open water swim, which was 3 miles around the,
Around the island.
well,
was
it wasn't around the island, it was around the speedboat around there. It was
Oh,
around there.
okay.
Yeah, so we did the 3 mile swim, okay. Didn't
What
get
ti-
anywhere.
Oh, well, you're allowed to as long as you participate. Now, what about how many brothers and sisters did you have?
I had 3 brothers.
3 brothers, okay. And I guess you're 81. Were you the youngest or the oldest or?
There was 2 older than me, and Trevor was 13 years younger than me again, or 12 years younger than me again.
Wow.
Yeah.
So any of them still with us?
Yes, Graham at 85, and Trevor in Aussie, he's the youngest one, he's still going, yep.
And so the rumour has it that Graham still does the odd bit of plumbing.
Oh yes.
At 85?
Yeah,
You're joking.
keep going.
Oh, look, as a child, was there anything that you wanted to do when you grew up? Did you have any ideas? Most people don't, but sometimes someone has a.
Yes, the same as everybody our age did. You used to grow up, go to high school. Not very many people went to varsity or even thought about it.
Yeah.
Had to get a job. You got a job, you got a girlfriend, you got married, you got a house
Yeah, kids.
and family, and that was it, yeah.
Yeah, but I think, look, really, I often wonder why we're here. We're here for our families. Yeah, it's sort of. Now you had 2 brothers that were plumbers, didn't you?
Yes, yeah.
And the Hughes name in Greymouth, of course, still floats around from a plumbing point of view.
Les Hughes and Son, and
Yeah.
Hughes and Emery now.
It just keeps on going.
Yeah.
What was your first job
Yeah.
where someone actually paid you?
Paper, the Grey Star.
Delivering it.
I delivered it from the overhead bridge at South Beach to up past Shantytown and halfway to Gladstone
Yeah.
and all the side roads and by roads.
And so how many papers?
About 75 papers for the Grey Star.
And in a basket in the front?
No, I had it over the bar, an old sugar bag cut in the middle.
Yeah.
But they then you'd pull one out, fold it in half, roll it up, and slowly bend it into a boomerang
And give it the flick.
give it a flick into the lawns or
Did you
verandas.
do you ever have any trouble with the odd dog chasing you?
No, never.
Never.
No, and I was the only one, the paper boy, that never had to collect. I got a penny of paper,
Yeah.
and the Grey Star used to send out the account to them. They would pay, and they would send out a cheque to me every month.
Wow.
Yeah,
So what
it was
happened?
such a big run.
Yeah, it'd be huge.
Mm.
So what happened after the paper run?
Well, I just went to the Sutherland Jewellers as an
And
apprentice.
What was the background of Sutherland's?
I don't know where it started from, but the earliest I remember is old Clocky Sutherland down here, where the ASB is now,
Yeah.
Sutherland's Jewellers, and his son Barney worked part-time as an apprentice and part-time as on the gold dredges and bridge building, because he was the same age as my father.
Yeah.
And then he shifted to Greymouth and started a shop there, and then one in Westport, one in Reefton, and then he took over old Clocky's shop down here in Hokitika.
And is that the same Barney Sullivan that
Yes.
kicked off Shantytown?
Yep.
Was it?
Yep.
Oh,
That's all Barney.
he's obviously a real entrepreneur.
Oh yes. Yeah.
You know, because I remember the shop in Westport.
Yeah.
I
That's
remember
right.
well.
And he sold that to Aldertons, and
Yeah.
who was one of his best mates.
Yeah.
And Melky Alderton, Arthur's son, took over.
Yep.
Shorty Alderton.
Shorty. I remember Shorty, and Melky took it over, and I think he went to Aussie, and then he sold out.
Yeah, that's
And
right. Yeah.
well, she's a small world.
And they sold that. Yeah.
Now, so and since then, so you joined Sutherland Jewellers,
Yeah.
and then at what point did you have that desire to go and work for yourself?
Well, when I first started there were 5 watchmakers all sitting around in an attic, excluding Barney was a watchmaker, his son,
Yeah.
Frank Major, Neville Major's father,
Okay.
and another 2, Dave Clifton,
Right.
who took over Sutherland's down here,
Right.
and Jack Cowan. And through into another room, there were 3 jewellers and 1 hand engraver, Johnny Hay, engraving with a chisel, hand engraver.
Goodness me.
And they all moved away or passed on.
Yep.
And in the finish, there was only myself there. And the new thing came up where you didn't work for wages, you worked on piecework, which was so much for a spring, so much for a clean, so much for so on, and just charged the boss, but you bought all the tools and spare parts.
Oh, so you're sort of self-employed
It was
on a contract basis type thing.
And about a third of my work come from Hokitika,
Yeah.
and I came down here to make inquiries for as to where I could get an agency to take in work for me.
Yep.
And Dave Clifton, who, as I say, I worked the first 10 years with in Greymouth, sitting alongside him, and he was the manager down here for Sutherland's later. And Dave would say, well, he said, "Dad, don't be damn silly, Howard, start up down here." Well, what do you mean? Oh, there's a great little shop round the corner, Billy Dewan's barber shop.
All right.
It's got a little counter and just what you'd need. So I made inquiries, and within a few months I said, "Sorry, Howard, I've got to go to Hokitika." "Oh, what about my jobs?" I said, "Just send them down, I'll do them." On the road service buses, they all came down, the jobs.
Right.
And after about 12 months, I rang him up and I said, "I'm sorry, Harold, I can't do your jobs." And he said, "Well, what's wrong? What's wrong?" I said, "I've got that much now. I
Can't keep
can't
up.
keep up." By this time, I bought myself an engraving machine, and
Ah.
yeah,
Now, you still fix the odd watch at home, don't you?
Oh yes, and clocks, as you saw.
I know. We'll have to, when we get to the end of this, we'll have to go and have a look and
Yeah.
run the camera around. Tell me about the town clock.
Well, when I shifted down here, which was about 43, 44 years ago,
Yeah.
and
1974.
what's that?
1974.
1974,
Yeah.
and it was playing up a bit, and then they asked could I have a look at it. So from then on, for the first quite a few years, until first next 30 odd years, I did it for nothing, as a town benefit.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, it's a big part of our town. It's a very important part.
Yes, until the time when it was in such a bad state it had to have something done.
Yeah.
So the building itself, the structure of the town clock was getting a bit rugged.
Yeah.
So the builders roundabout said, well, we will do the inside up if Howard will do the works. So the only way of getting the works out was through the dials. Take the dial out.
Oh, so
I
she
took-
full dismantle.
Yes.
Wow.
So I took the works out
Yeah.
and took it round the shop and fixed the works up, overhauled the whole works, made new points and everything else for it, and put it in the window and had it going in the window for about 3 or 4 months, the town clock, so everybody could see what the works was like.
That would have been fascinating.
Yeah.
Now, Richard did some wizardry there as well, didn't he?
Yes, at the time when it came down here, the master clock was in or for the timekeeping part, was in the post office,
Right.
and there was a wire going across from the post office to the town clock, and exactly right on the half minute, it would go click with, ooh,
There we go.
another job.
Yeah. And it would just go click.
And it'd just go click, and it would,
Click, target.
yes, and it would work a solenoid, would go click,
Yeah.
and would keep the clock going for another half minute, and then it would stop, and bing, and it would go round. And I got sick of it every time they played round with the clock in the post office. So Richard, my son, who served his time at Tony Graham's
Yeah.
on electronics, and he says, it's all right, Dad, but this stage he was an Aussie, I'll make up a unit for you. So he made up a unit. So Richard brought it over, and we set it up in there, and it's been going ever since, spot on.
And is it still there to this day?
Yeah, yes, it's still, the works are still in there. It's a real fancy one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Now, I noticed when I come up your drive, first thing we went and had a look at, and I'm a keen gardener. I had a look at your garden, and I thought, I've got to say, I'm very impressed. I'm
goody,
really
goody.
impressed. Now, you've been a keen gardener.
It's not often you're impressed, is it?
No, it is. I come across, you'd be amazed how many people like you I come across who are just amazing at different things.
Yeah.
Just amazing. Now, you've been, I know that virtually, I recall going to many AMP shows, and you're always there.
Yes.
And you had any big wins?
There's quite a few in there. There's quite a few first, second and third cards in there.
What's the secret to a garden?
Keep at it. Keep at it. Because as one of my old mates says, Dick Alcock, Howard, I wish to hell I'd never started gardening before so that I could start now. Why is that, Dick? Because I've never had the problems that I have now with the garden. All the pests that are in it.
You don't, do you have pest problems?
Yes.
And because you know the growth out there is just, I mean, we're in the middle of a town, and it's like a commercial garden out there.
Everybody used to say, how's your tomatoes going, Howard? Oh, great. How's the white fly? Never had white fly. Never had it. Until last year. And the damn things took over.
And they
Yeah.
arrived? Maybe a change in humidity or something like that. Don't know.
So yes.
Yeah, I had a few problems with my tomatoes last year with stuff coming in and causing a real,
Yeah.
Yeah, they reckon you're not too bad as a duck shooter.
Oh, we've been going there since I was 14. You go down to Okarita with Dad and the other two brothers, and you sit with Dad the first year, and the second year at 15, you'd have your own posse.
Yeah, and you say you build a mai.
Yes. Well, mainly in the flats down there, yes. And since then, we've been going up to Lake Kangaroo, which is up like...
where's Kangaroo?
We've got Lake Brunner, Kangaroo, Pararua and
okay.
Lady Lake.
Yeah.
And Kangaroo, my mate and I have been going up there for 50 years plus, I'd say.
So an important part of the year for you.
Oh, could be 60 years, I'd say. Yes, it's an occasion. And then my brother came along, and then the two brothers came along.
Yeah.
And their family started, and then my family started, and the son-in-laws arrived along there. So we're still going out there, the son-in-laws, and
so they're still doing the May.
I will still go up on the 1st of May. Yes, yeah.
Wow.
Mainly for the main weekend. Yeah.
Is it? What's the thrill of it? Is it shooting the duck? And I mean, I've shot a few ducks, but nothing like you. Or is it eating the duck? Yeah. Or is it? What is it?
It's tradition.
Of course it is. Goodness me, what am I saying? and obviously you've got a close group of mates that just love it.
Oh yes, yeah.
What about you ever shot a rabbit?
Oh yes, yeah. We used to come down. We had family picnics when we were kidlets, and used to come down to Kokadai Kotarangi after the rabbits, which was all Mum's family, her brothers and the grandparents and so on, and we'd go down there. But there was never occasion where we went for a picnic unless there was a reason for it. Down there was rabbits,
right?
But we could go out to 12 Mile or 9 Mile along the coast road after mussels or crayfish, or it could be
blackberries,
mushrooms, blackberries, you name it. We would go out.
We live in paradise, don't we?
Oh,
we
yes.
really do.
Yeah.
It's pretty fantastic.
Oh, of course it is.
Now, you're still looking in pretty good nick. Now, someone told me that you did the Banks Peninsula tramp.
You've been talking to Jill, haven't you?
I'm not saying too much. I'm not saying too much at all. And that was only in recent times.
2 years ago. Yeah.
That's a 4-day. That's a 4-day tramp.
Yeah.
Did they have to fly you out?
No. But we didn't take our packs in.
Right.
We took a day pack and got them delivered in by bus. So yeah.
Was it good?
Oh, it's great. Yeah, it's fantastic views and so on. Yep.
And was there a large group of you, a small group?
It was 12.
Wow.
Well, in our group there was just the family.
Yeah.
But the on the walk itself, there were 12 going into each house or hut or bivvy or whatever you like to call it at night times. Yeah, they're very good.
How did the body take it? Because you'd have been 78.
Good as gold. That's all right.
No trouble.
Yeah.
You're an amazing man.
Well, I've got Alex, a grandson, and he had two mates with him.
Yeah.
And they would run ahead every time he took off, and they'd have a bet as who would be the next one along, and Alice got it right every time. Granddad will be the next. So no, good as gold.
Oh, I love it. Now, one of the when I was researching this discussion that we're having, one of the things that came up was that there's an elder brother.
Yeah.
Now in the lives of the family.
Yes.
And what a fantastic thing is after all these years.
Yes.
Just.
I only discovered I had another son for definite. There was a possibility, but all the family knew about a possibility. And 3 years ago, I got a letter and answered the letter, and he's been over here several times since. We get on very, very well. Yeah.
Oh, that's a story around the world, isn't it?
Yes.
And it's
that's right.
It's fantastic. The when you look at where we're born and how we're raised, one of the things that I've always known about you is that you're actually Chinese of Chinese origin.
Yes. Yep.
What's the background there?
Well, the great-grandfather came out from the Shetland Islands
Yeah.
on the boat. He was a boatie, and met a lady on the boat, and they shipped it over here in 1866, and during the big days, and he was boating on the, as far as we know, on the river here, taking people up Manapoo Creek, because that's where the hospital was, and the hospital was up there.
Yeah.
They had a section at Lagoon Town on South Spit, up there. They had a house there, and he had 5 daughters, a son, and one of them, or the 4 of them, married Chinese.
Yeah.
And,
All 4 of them.
And my great-grandmother married a Chinese in the goldfields here, Joe Chi.
Isn't that fantastic?
Yep. And she was only 14 at the time.
And the Chinese, were they market gardeners or gold miners or?
He was a cook.
Okay.
Yes.
Ah.
They stayed here for a while, and then went up north to Wanganui and had a Palmerston North. Yeah. And they had a daughter who was my grandmother.
Right.
And a son, and he took over Joe took him over to China for 10 years to be to Chinese him.
Yeah.
And during this time, my great-grandmother came back down to Greymouth, and the family were carried on from here. So that was it.
They're a big
so I'm
part.
the 5th generation.
Well,
West Coaster.
they're a big part of our West Coast heritage. The Chinese.
Well, yes.
They're an absolute huge
yes.
part.
Yes.
And you know, now your father worked in the meatworks. Where was the meatworks?
Oh, the grandfather.
Your grandfather worked
in Greymouth. Yeah,
and where was it?
There.
Where was it then?
Down Shelley Street. Down backing onto the aerodrome. Part of the aerodrome was a abattoir paddock.
Ah.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that makes sense. And Shelley Street's down the far end.
Yes.
Is it? Am I right there? Yeah. By the Kororo Cemetery there somewhere.
Yes.
Down that end.
Round it. Yes.
All my folks are all buried at the
down by the
Kororo.
camping ground.
Oh, I know it is.
Yes.
Yeah, with you there.
Yep.
They, with all the time you spent outdoors,
Mm-hmm.
you must have become a pretty good bushman.
Oh, I love me bush.
Do you ever get lost?
No.
Probably bushwhacked, but not lost.
No. I'd read the Sun.
Yeah.
I know, we used to be out there with my mates from the time we were 14, out there shooting with a 22.
Yeah.
We got our 303s and got onto the deer. And
Where did you shoot your first deer?
up Marsden at New River up there. Mate and I have got one each, yes.
Morning or afternoon?
Morning, early morning.
Up a creek?
Yes, up a creek, yeah.
Tocha River was mine, first one.
Oh,
I'll never forget it.
yes, I know. We've been out quite a bit over the years. Knocked a few off. Yeah.
Now you've had an awful lot to do with the Boy Scouts.
I was a cub.
Yeah.
Started off as a wolf cub.
Yep.
When in the Gladstone pack, when we were the first cubs in the Gladstone Scout group. That was just formed.
Right.
And then up to Scouts, across the bridge into Scouts as they call it, and went through Scouts to the Scoutmaster.
Okay, and it was that in ladies. They went to Venturers, I think.
Oh,
or was that different again?
No, I left before that.
Well,
we never had the Venturers at Gladstone.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was wasn't it a wonderful way to bring people into the bush?
Oh, it was.
You know,
yes.
it was a brilliant thing.
And I used to love taking them out for the weekends.
Yeah.
With the tents and so on. Yeah.
I spent a lot of time at the Scout Lodge in the Buller Gorge.
Yeah.
And up Mountain Creek and all that. You know, it's the makings of a person.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Do you remember the first time you cooked a feed going out on a camp?
In the camp?
Yeah, I remember cooking spaghetti.
No.
Burnt the belly. Yes.
No, we used to cook enough at home.
Right.
It's still going.
Yeah. Now, when did you meet your good wife?
Well, as an act for the Savage Club,
Right.
or earlier on, I used to do magic. I was the local magician, and Barry's brother, who's my age, went through rugby with him and all the rest.
Yeah.
And he was having his 21st, and they invited me along to do some magic on the stage.
Right.
And during that time, or that night, Berry and her mother were up there singing down by the riverside. And was it down by the riverside there? Yes. She was only a little girl then.
Yeah, yeah.
Or teenager, yeah. Until a few years later, back at the Gladstone Dances.
And so,
That's where you used to meet the girls at
Absolutely.
the dances.
Absolutely. And did you know straight away that she was the one?
Yes, we did, didn't we, dear? Yeah.
So when you got married, where'd you go on your honeymoon?
Paringa.
You did not. You did.
Yes.
Did you really?
We went down as far as Wakapoai to the bridge
Right.
because that was as far as the road went then.
Oh. And so where did you stay in France?
Yes, the first night at Fran's and the motels there,
Right.
when the Glacier View motels were there. The only problem was that it was a diesel plant, electric
A
plant.
generator, yeah, yeah.
And when you turned the light on any motel or anywhere around, pop, 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 pop.
Oh, you're
the whole
joking.
village would come to
So it didn't matter which
switch. You
you turned
started
it on.
the lights on.
The
yes.
genie had come on.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Gosh.
And then we went down to Paringa and stayed at the Paringa motels down there, which were right next to the Ron Hogland had them,
Yes.
right next to the lake. And but we ordered the double bed unit,
Yeah.
which were the 6x2s made up there like that there, and right next to it was the other one, which was a double bed
Yeah.
with mattresses in them, which was about that far away from the wall, which was full of flies,
Oh, no.
dead flies and so on.
Oh, that,
Cold rains to cook the meals on.
that sounds pretty romantic.
Oh, it was.
It
But not really when you think of it, that I took the rifle down there and somehow or other I wasn't allowed to go out for a shot.
Oh, well, it's a bit of give and take, isn't it?
Yeah.
A bit of give and take in these things. You know, you got to be fair. So when the generator went on, from there, did every light come on?
Oh, well, the street lights outside come on.
Ah, amazing. Everything's changed.
Haven't things changed all right? But you could see the glacier from there.
Right. And was the new hotel, had that been built at that time?
No, no.
No, it's well before then.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What do you know about Savages?
The Savage Club I've been in for 65 years.
Yes.
And Dad was in Greymouth, plus his brother, the grandfather, old Mossy Swift, plus 3 of his sons, and they had their sons joined, and it was only natural that we joined.
Yeah.
So we had one trip every year, or every 2 years, to the national conference. You go away to the conferences. And one of the conferences, we went up to up the North Island, and there were Dad and his 3 sons, and there was old Ralph Holmes, who was the head teacher at Cameron School, with
Right.
his 3 Holmes boys.
Right.
Oh, 4, yeah, 3.
And are they Holmes?
4
Are still,
Holmes boys, sorry.
there's still a lot of them in the Greymouth area, isn't there?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, like
they're
Collins and-
offsprings of.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so, even to this day, when there's an event on, Howard Hughes is leading the charge. Still.
Well, yeah, but nobody's game to take it over.
What about? There must have been a lot of pranks played in the early days.
It's yes.
Can you tell us?
A lot of fun. It's just a fun club.
Yeah.
The name Savage has got nothing to do with savages. It was called after a couple of 100 years ago in England. It was started there with the out of work musicians, poets, dancers and all the rest, and they went to Drury Lane, and a pub at Drury Lane, and they used to go there for drinks, and they would entertain each other.
Well, that's where it started.
So they said, well, what are we going to call it? Oh, we'll call it this, Fun Club, all the rest of the names.
Yeah.
And someone says, well, what about, what's his name, Savage? He was a devil. About 100 years ago he lived. He was a poet, and he was accused of murder. He's in the prison.
All right.
It just sounds like
It's
us.
just.
So they adopted the name of Savage,
And
the Savage Club.
has the Savage Club, does it tour to other areas?
It went from England
Yeah.
to Aussie, and they adopted the Aborigine tone for all their official stuff.
Right.
Came to New Zealand, and they adopted the Maori traditions.
Yeah.
And the official part is all done in Maori. Went to America, and they adopted the Indian thing. So yes, it's all around. It was all around the world.
And as your club in Hokitika here, did you travel to other parts of New Zealand?
Oh yes, yeah.
So and
Every
was it-
2 years there'd be a conference.
Yeah, and do they call them a raid? I'm
No.
trying to think.
The raids are in between the clubs. There were about 50 odd clubs in New Zealand,
Right.
and they would, we would say to Waimate, Christchurch, or Nelson, or we would like to raid you guys on such and such a time next year, or they would invite you up there.
Yeah.
We would travel up there, and the visiting club would put on the whole show. So, which was sketches, musical items, and yeah.
And were wives involved?
Well, that has been a thing for many years, that it was an all men's club
Yeah.
right throughout New Zealand, and the wives would come along to the conferences, and they would have other do's for the ladies, fashion parades, etc., while
Oh,
the
okay.
men were at the national the national meeting. And then they always had the annual dinners
Yeah.
or ladies' nights where they put on the show for the ladies. But over the last few years, ladies have joined the organisation, and there's only 4 clubs now that are all male clubs.
Oh, it's changed. Well, the times have changed.
Yes.
That's how it works. It's So, what age were you when you decided to retire? Or did you
I
haven't really done it
retired
yet?
at 67.
67.
Yeah.
I remember the articles in the local paper.
Semi-retired.
Yeah,
I moved home.
You'd had so much work to do, you wouldn't have known what to do.
Yeah.
Can you? Do you remember your first date?
At Sutherland's.
No, your first date with your good wife.
Yes. Picked her up. You always had the last dance, which was the Destiny. Yes.
Yeah.
And you stand up the end of the hall. Yes, I had Destiny waltz. And
Right.
Would you like to go take you home?
And so, did you have a car?
Oh yes, we had a car.
What sort?
We had an old 1937 Citroen, big 15.
Oh, imagine what that'd be worth now.
Yes.
And it'll be yeah. What do you most admire about Berry? What's the quality or the strength that she's brought to the relationship that's you've been together so long?
Understanding me.
It wouldn't be easy. It wouldn't be easy, would it? You know.
But we're, you'd say, completely different in our views and think. Would you say, dear? Yes.
Well, that.
Yin and yang.
Well, look. One of the things that we all notice is that when you look at people who are together a long time, there is a yin and a yang. Often it's very difficult for two. Like you're an extrovert.
Yes.
There's no doubt about that. I mean, you've and you need something to balance. And unless you've got the balance, it's hard work, isn't it?
Well, as we had our 50th wedding anniversary in Kamara about 8 years ago.
Yep.
And who should stand up and ask a question? Son-in-law Sean Dryly.
Right.
And Sean said, Howie, how come you two have stayed together for so long? And I said, we've got an agreement, an unofficial agreement. He said, what's that? I said, Berry stays out of my kitchen and I stay away from her ironing board.
Sounds like that's a good deal.
Yes.
I mean, I reckon you're both winners there. When can you recall your grandparents?
Yes.
Can you recall them? Did you have discussions with them? A lot of people never meet. Certainly, most people never meet the four grandparents.
All right.
And can you recall having discussions with your grandparents or any of them?
Mum's father and mother, yes, because they were in Greymouth all of our lives until they shipped to Christchurch. The dad's parents didn't have much to do with dad's mum, yes.
Yep.
But granddad, we didn't have very much to do with him. He was fairly quiet.
Okay.
So we were a bit, not scared, but a bit cautious of Granddad Hughes.
Yeah. Over the years, in 81 years, you'll have seen a lot of inventions. What's been the ones that have really stuck in your mind?
Hello, is that you? Which one do you push?
It's been huge, isn't it?
Yes.
And even in the 70s when you came to Hokitika, you'd have been 850S or whatever, and you pick up the phone and it was and quite often the person on the end at the telephone exchange would say, well, look, they've gone out for the day, so you can't ring them.
Very good. They knew. Hello, 6496, please. Because they're all on party lines.
Yeah.
Oh, Howard, so-and-so's away for the week, or so-and-so knew everybody in town. Kia ora.
It was amazing, wasn't it?
Yes.
It was just amazing. It sort of...
And then your phone would come through, it would ring out, and you go, hello, and so-and-so and so-and-so, oh, yeah, and then you hear a click. Put that damn phone down, it's not yours.
That's...
Dozy Parkers.
Did you always have a fridge? Or can you remember when did you first get a fridge?
At home, I suppose we would have been coming up to teens, I would say.
Yeah, still.
When we got the first refrigerator, being out in the country a bit.
What was your dad's first car?
I don't know what his first car was.
Do you remember any of the cars?
I can remember a heap Morrises and this and that and Fords and all sorts of cars that he used to have.
Were you a car man?
We've had quite a few there. The first one was a Austin 12, 1937 Austin 12.
Wow.
Which we did up, and then the Citroen, and then a and so on, so on, so on. Yeah.
And they just keep, well, we've all been through a lot of cars, haven't we?
Oh, yes.
But that first one's always one that's easy to remember.
But the one that we had the most fun in was that Dad's shooting mate Frank Malloy,
Right.
who used to drive the plane from here down to Haast, backwards and forwards.
I've read lots about him.
Well, he went overseas to be a pilot overseas
Right.
during the war, and he left his baby Austin 7 in our shed, and that was our toy during the shed, backwards and forwards.
Oh, and you're allowed to use it.
Oh well, it never went.
Of course.
But we were allowed to play, and after it, Frank picked it up and took it, and he got the farm out Cockatoo, and his boys used to run around the farm in the baby Austin.
Wow. What? How are things different today than from when you were a kid? You know, like there would have been. It feels like there's a lot more pressure on the young ones today.
Oh, is there what? I mean, we had so much to do. In the summer, you'd be down there at Sparrows with the kids, down there swimming. You'd be out in the bush. You'd know that rugby in the afternoon, bike through to Greymouth for the rugby.
Yeah. Did you say bike through?
Bike through to Greymouth from Pará.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, well,
Not here.
I was going to say. Gosh.
And but that was one of the things Dad said. He'd bike down from Greymouth to Hokitika, and you get a puncture and you'd pull grass and shove inside your tyre to.
Oh, so you get there.
Yes. So yeah. So there was never a dull moment. There was always something to do.
Yeah,
You never planned anything; it just happened.
And it was always safe, wasn't it?
Yes.
Well, it felt safe.
Yes.
Perhaps so.
Well, at the time, as far as the children goes, we knew everybody, every house, who lived in them, from, you may as well say, Karora Cemetery to Hokitika. We knew everybody, every house, because
Wow.
the road never went through.
Yeah.
So every car that went through, you just about knew
Who it was.
who it was, yes. Safety.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You never locked the doors in your house. If you went away for a holiday, you never locked the doors.
Isn't it great?
Honesty.
Yeah. Was there a person in your life that you come across that changed the way you thought or the direction you went in? Someone like a mentor or someone that you thought that you really looked up to?
Not really. Most of them were the older folk.
Yeah.
Olders, yes.
Yeah.
We had a lot of to do with Mum's father, or Granddad, Swift, who was a real character. And we went over to Christchurch a few years ago, and we had a family reunion over there, the Swift family reunion. And they asked anybody got anything can you remember and so on, and I stood up and I said, well, sitting in the back of the car when we're going on trip with Grandma and Granddad, Granddad would start his little ditties and so on. And,
What's a little ditty?
Little ditty. Last night a cat stood in the back fence, his feet was covered in whiskers, his head was down, his tail was up, and wind whistles through his whiskers. Mother's got him, mother's got him, mother's got him coming on again. She's running around the houses with a pair of Granddad's trousers, mother's got him coming on again. And down the back, I can remember that, Howard, and then there was such and such, and then there was so and so and so.
And they're all coming out of
all the grandkids,
Yeah.
the cousins,
all remembered it.
all remember Granddad's little ditties.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Wow.
There was a man from Rooster who was very much annoyed by a rooster. He cut off its head until it was dead, and now it don't crow like it used to. All right.
How would you describe your sense of humour? I mean, I could describe it, but how would you describe it?
Enjoyable.
Yeah. You love life, don't you?
Yes.
You know, you do. You just love life. Have you met any famous people?
Not really.
Who have we had come through? We've had Prince Charles. We've had,
I was in the Scout uniform when the Queen came through for the first time.
Right.
Outside the Pará school. Yeah.
Was that 53? I suppose.
I don't know when it
Have to be.
was. I know
Yeah.
it was, yeah.
I know that I was born in 52, and my mother always said that the Queen came out the next year to see me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We missed her on that occasion.
Apart from you.
Of course. Okay. So what other groups have you belonged to other than obviously Savage? You know, you've been involved in all sorts of community things in both Hokitika and Greymouth. What other things, you know, just...
No, just enjoying entertaining for the other organisations, be it the Fire Brigade or the Grey Power, and we're not old enough to join Grey Power yet.
Yeah, no, take your time. Take your time there. Now, have you done much travelling?
Yes, well, a few years ago we heard of Kia Tours, which was a Greymouth company, and the first trip was from a bus trip over the other side through the Catlins, Stewart Island, and back
Wow.
up here.
I've never been to Stewart Island. What's it like?
I was disappointed.
Oh,
We've got a jolly sight more here.
wow.
Well, it's good. It's
And-
not better.
And the Catlins was interesting?
Catlins was quite interesting, yes. And when we were down Stewart Island, we went to on a minibus. A little, I forget what his name was now. He took us round there, and every 5 minutes he would stop and get out his pipe and start, and you'd be looking around, and I said something about the bungies or something. And he says, bungies? Yeah. Are you from the West Coast? Yeah, why? They're the only ones that I know are call them bungies, he says.
What do they call them from away?
Pungers.
Oh, what's wrong with them, Howard?
Yeah.
Oh, goodness me.
And then the next trip we did was Akaroa. We'd been on flying trips by the day, backwards and forwards.
Yeah.
We were in Christchurch. But this was a 4-day trip all around there, and looking at the old cheese factory that my great uncle used to own,
Right.
and the different places where he had his farm there and so on. And that was very good. We went to up to the top of the North Island. We'd never been to Waitomo, we'd never been to Rotorua, we'd never there and everywhere.
Yeah.
To the top of the South Island, up to Farewell Spit. We'd never been, little bits and pieces. The biggest one was to Tassie. There was 28 of us went over Tassie. But most of the trips I was the gopher.
Oh.
There were usually only 1 or 2 men on the trip, and the others were widows.
Right.
Yeah, so I was the gopher for Matthew Lysett, who
Yeah.
was running the tours. Yeah,
Oh, I know
And-
that.
Chatham's, that was
Oh, you've
very,
been?
very good.
You been to the Chathams?
Excellent.
Never
yes.
been.
Yeah, there was about 8 of us went over there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is there anywhere that you've been where you went, I could live here?
Here
Yeah.
would be the place.
Perfect answer, Coasters.
Oh, it is, yes.
Perfect answer.
Yep.
You know, as we get to the end of this this little, and this is only part, I mean, we could go on for hours with the life that you've had, but there's a lot of young people that follow our Coasters Club. And is there a lesson in life that you've learned over life that can help smooth the path for anybody who's watching? How do you keep a good relationship? How do you keep good health? How do you keep a great garden? How do you keep a great sense of humour?
Just keep moving. Walking. I do walk every an hour or so every day. Even if it's only going down to get a loaf of bread.
Yeah.
By the time you see someone and start to talking, it's never under an hour.
it takes-
could be 2 hours or 3 hours.
All takes time, doesn't it?
So the social be sociable. And enjoy the social occasions.
I love it.
Yes.
Well, Coasters, this series is actually 7 separate interviews, and you can find it on the Coasters Club YouTube channel, and it'll be playing over the next couple of months. You'll find it on Facebook as it plays out, and a copy of the full interview is going to be lodged with the Hokitika Museum. So if you want to find reference to this interview, just type in Howard Hughes, a coaster, and you'll find him. Well, look, Howard, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with me. I really appreciate it, and sharing just a little bit of your history with
Thank you,
coasters.
Mhm.
It's been fantastic.
Mhm.
So thank you so much.
Thank you, Bruce. Yeah.